Hi, I'm going to show you how to make hearts. They're going to be stuffed with toy stuffing, but I suppose equally they could be stuffed with lavender. Here are some I made earlier. I did some embroidery on it, and I put some string, and the string I sewed on with white thread so you can't really see it. I sewed on the button, and that's also just free embroidery. This one is pretty because the fabric is pretty, and on this side it would have been quite plain linen, to give it a sort of nice earthy texture. If you consider the sort of fabrics that you want, perhaps you could make one side of the heart floral, the other side spots. I think the spots have got quite a nice old-fashioned feel. I think the secret is to choose a fabric that you love, that you absolutely just love. So for example, this was a curtain, and it goes quite nicely I think with this Provençal print that I had a cushion out of. I could cut that up quite easily. What I've chosen for today is two absolutely beautiful fabrics, I think. They are made by Amy Butler, who's a really fabulous fabric designer, and they are extraordinarily expensive. They're something like £14 for a metre, so I bought just half a metre each, but I thought it was worth it. Now, I've got some ribbon like this grosgrain ribbon, which has got little pink lines on it. I don't know if you can see, and we're going to use this as a label. It's quite thick, it's quite sturdy. I think it'll make the project look like it's professionally made. I live on a magnetic pin cushion that my sister gave me, and I never thought anything would be better than an ordinary pin cushion, but this really is fabulous because you can just chuck them nearby and get, oops, and there it goes. Right, so you sort out your fabric, and really what you need is, if you're cutting them both out of green spot, you would fold the fabric, okay, and you would cut 2 green spots like that. Now, because the fabric is precious, and I would imagine all the fabric you use is going to be terribly precious, I would, if I were you, always just consider how to save the fabric. So put it down on a table and get some pins, and don't be lazy, put some pins in because it makes it so much easier when you cut. I would say at least 3 pins stuck in like so, and you've got the right sides together, okay? Now when you cut, try obviously not to start chopping the paper. So for example, I'm pretty much cutting tightly next to the heart shape. Obviously the top is harder to cut. It's easier if you just lie it down. Try not to cut on top of on your lap because you'll cut your clothes. Try not to cut on top of your Mum's, really nice tablecloth because you'll cut that. Don't cut paper with the fabric scissors. Okay, so here's the heart, and I've cut it out, and now we've got to concentrate because this is where I sometimes get myself lost. You've got the right sides together, and that's what we're going to sew. But in order to make it professional, I want to put a label in it, plus I want to put the string in it. Now, if I'm going to sew it, I need to sew it, I'll show you here with the unpicker. I need to sew it, and I need to trap those things on the inside. Here's the ribbon that I've chosen for the little label. So I'll snip a little bit off. Okay, so that's the grosgrain ribbon that's going to be the label for the heart. And I want it to be, when the heart's finished, I want it to stick out. Alright, so I've got to get it sewn on the inside, so I'm going to put it roughly there. So when I sew it around, that's got to be trapped. And then the second thing is I'd quite like to, because it always does look terrible, actually it'll look lovely, it'll look very professional if I have a big ribbon on the inside, so I think that's quite generous. It's got my metre stick here, so I've cut a length of ribbon. Mustn't be stingy on the ribbon. I've cut 34 centimetres, so roughly 35, between 30 and 35. Now that's got to go inside, so make sure the good sides are showing. Now that's going to be at the point of the heart, okay? But I must be very careful not when I go down here not to go through it. So I'm going to tack it up neatly. Okay, so let me show you. So that bit there I'm going to sew over, that bit there I'm going to sew over. So now I'm going to put the other right side on top. And I'm just going to pin it where I'm going to sew it. So that's going to be the only hard part up at the top here. I'm going to pin it through there. So that's easy, pin it through there. It's relatively easy, pin it there. And I'm coming down here, pin it there. I think the only hard part is the tag, so I'm going to take it out of the tag and put it on an outside pin. And so there I've got a little sandwich, okay? On the inside is the tag, which is sitting over there. On the inside is the ribbon, which is sitting over here. And I'm going to go zooming around the outside, leaving a little hole, and then turn it inside out. I've got the machine on straight stitch, so what I'll do, because I'm going to be stressing the gap, I'll reverse it. So it's a locking stitch. I'm keeping it fairly close to the edge, not madly. Now I'm coming down to the point here. When I get down to nearly the point, I'm going to stop with the needle inside the fabric. I'm going to lift up the presser foot, and I'm going to turn it and pivot it so that you don't break the thread. Move the pins as you go. Keep the foot pretty much on the edge. And sometimes if you want to turn around a corner, you can just push it with this other hand like that, or if you need to, you can lift up the presser foot a tiny bit and just adjust it. You're trying to keep a smooth line. You're trying not to make it kind of jaggedy. Okay, and then you go down here, and roughly where the corner of the heart is, you do a pivot again. Yeah, right. Go up the other fat cheek of the heart. Might need to move it a few times. Now this is where I started. I started down here. You can see where the thread is. I started down here, so I want to leave a gap to put the stuffing in. I'm going to leave that much of a gap. I suppose it's about an inch and a bit. It's always easier if you leave a bigger hole, but then you've got your hand sewing to contend with. I don't know how neat your hand sewing is. Okay, so now there, if I can show you, that's neat enough. There's the heart. You can see it's sewn, and you can see that there's a gap over here. If you just look up at the top here, you'll see that the line of stitching is very far away from the edge of the fabric, and that's going to cause a pucker. So you want it to be quite a sharp point. So taking a good pair of embroidery scissors, if you just put a snip, and don't cut through the thread, but cut very close to the thread, that'll make a huge difference. Okay, you cut just a little bit close to, you see where you stitched? Just there, and that should make it turn a little bit better. Now you stick your finger inside, go looking for the ribbon. Go looking for the ribbon. I'm looking for the ribbon. It's in there somewhere, I know, because I put it in there. And everybody's got their own tool to turn things out with. Mine is the most priceless tool, trust me. It's an old broken knitting needle. So you use your fingers until you can't do the little corners anymore, or you just feel a bit cross. And that looks pretty heart-shaped, look at that. Okay, wow, I'm quite impressed. Okay, now here's the bit you've been waiting for. Get your toy stuffing, and really do use decent toy stuffing because anything else will feel lumpy and horrible. And obviously if you're doing lavender, now's the time to make that choice. And you start stuffing it in, and I would always go for the difficult areas first. So, you know, if you're stuffing a doll, you start with the head. I should have made that point a bit better. I'll just pull it out a little bit with a pen, make it a bit more pointy, a bit more hearty. There. And you'll be astonished how much this little heart can take. Your aim is for it not to feel cheap. It's got to feel quite dense. Your little fingers are great for this. Okay, if you are a bit nervous about hand sewing, there are a couple of secrets. First of all, you hide the knot inside. Yeah, so I'm not going to see it on the outside. Right, with your fingers, push it. Imagine it's like you've done a bit of surgery and you want to have a good, neat opening. Now, everybody's got their own way of sewing. I sometimes sew backwards towards myself, so I'm just catching a tiny little bit. I want to make this neat because I really, really don't want it to look unprofessional at this stage after I've spent so much time doing it. So I just want to make it really, really neat. Take a tiny bit in each stitch and keep your stitches regular. You'll find your own sewing style. I just do the slip stitch, it's called, I think. Little by little. There, I think you can see. Okay. And don't worry if bits of fluff start poking out, you can always clean them off later. Now, same as surgery, you don't want to pull the thing too tight. So you want to do it really neatly. And this is the bit that makes or breaks it, I think. This is the bit that makes it look nicely professional or not. So obviously you try to keep the hole as small as possible when you first made it, but it's got to be big enough to get your fingers into. That's why I also reversed stitch at the beginning of the sewing and at the end, so that nothing's going to unravel. And that's pretty much my last stitch. And then once again you want to hide the knot inside it. So I'm going to make my knot and then I'm going to lose the knot inside the heart. So make one knot, and I think I want to make two knots. Anyway, I'm not too fussed with that because I'll lose it. Sometimes it just does annoying things. Okay, so that's my next good old knot. Okay, now look here. You put your stitch there and then sew it through somewhere else, and in that way you ought to be able to lose that knot, and so I can cut it off. And that's pretty much my heart. The only thing extra to do is to look in the button drawer. I've got these buttons, and I've got one of these buttons, so I don't know, maybe I could sew that one over there. Would that be cute? I'm saving for something nice because they're kind of flowery and gorgeous. I think that could look quite nice. What do you reckon? So that could be your little heart.